All right, ladies, welcome to this episode of the Joyful Scaling Podcast. Listen, if you experience drama when it comes to sales, this episode is for you because my guest today loves helping women like you get out of your head when it comes to selling and to be unapologetic about sales. So you know she's my kind of girl. And why do we do this? So that you can share your amazing offers in a powerful and authentic way so you can impact more lives. I want you to meet Amanda Edwards. She's the creator of the Imperfectly Ambitious podcast that you have to listen to. Write that down. Imperfectly Ambitious. Okay. She is a business mentor who specializes in leadership-based messaging and sales. Oh, it's going to be so good. She helps her clients communicate their message in a way that stands out from the noise and connects with their ideal clients at a much deeper level. She has 15 years experience leading accounts and sales strategy for Fortune 100 companies where she learned, now listen, ladies, these are huge lessons that you're going to understand what this means by the end of it. She's learned that there is not a one size fits all recipe for success, and there is no magic script. Amanda's on mission to bring human connection back to business and leadership into the sales process. Let's welcome Amanda to the show.
Hi, Judy. Thank you so much for having me. I love this, and I'm so excited to chat with you about it. Thank you.
Oh, this is going to be so good because sales is, no matter how much I talk about it, and maybe no matter how much you talk about it, this has been so ingrained in us, we have to totally reframe our mind. So we're going to get to that. But first, I'd love you to give our audience a snapshot of your background.
Yeah.
What led you here?
Yeah, absolutely. So like you said, I've been in corporate sales for over 15 years, and sales in general is very entrepreneurial. And so when I say corporate sales, it's probably not what you're thinking. I have been very entrepreneurial in how I go about creating relationships, and then getting business, right? Like what makes sense for me? How is my messaging? How do I conduct my sales conversations? What's my own method in order to bring in the business? And I've learned, I just saw that there was such a different way. And I think when I first started in my career, I was looking at my colleagues who were maybe more technical than I was, or who had their process that they followed or whatever it was. And I thought, well, I better start doing that, or I should try to fit myself into that box too. And when I realized that the very reason why I was hired in the first place, the very reason for my success was not trying to do what my colleagues were doing. It was actually following more of what I was already good at and what I felt strongly about and passionately about and had conviction about. When I followed that, then everything changed. And so through my career and through the quote unquote success that I have seen in sales, I have a heart for women in business because I grew up, so to speak, in a career that was like, I don't know, it was like 93% men. Until recently, that's changed over the past few years, and very few women in my role. And so I have this heart for women in business, and I know that there can be such a better way than what you're taught in sales trainings, than what you see. And pretty much like you're always taught a process, or you're always taught these certain things that have to be included in your sales conversations or in the process. And that led me to starting Imperfectly Ambitious, was really around not only is fundamentally like discovering what it is and who you are and what you know that you're good at, what you have a passion for, what you have this calling to do, and put yourself out in the world in bigger ways in order to do that. But for me, my business mentorship and the things that I feel so strongly about is helping women to do that, put themselves out there, sell what they have to offer, sell that service or that product or your ideas, in order to create the impact that you know you can, but you hide so often behind this wall and you don't put yourself out there out of this fear or this mindset that you have around sales, or thinking that you have to have this perfect process in order to be successful. So then you just kind of dilute yourself, you hide behind this wall, and you know that you're capable of so much more.
Wow. That is a mouthful. And I just want to highlight some of the last things you said, because I think it really hits home. Too many women are hiding. And part of that is we feel like we need to be humble. Like we might look at a guy or even a too bold woman who approaches business in a way that doesn't feel good. Mm-hmm. She's arrogant. She's in it for herself, and so when we think that looks like success, then we go the other way. We run, like we hide. And then I love what you said about diluting. God made each of us with that unique blend of what I call extraordinariness, and we just dilute it when we say, ooh, well, I'm being taught X, Y, and Z, so I can't really do what I want to do because I feel like I've got to follow their methodology. So wow, this is so good.
Oh, good. Thank you. I know I feel so strongly about that because there isn't a one size fits all. And I think we almost want that. We want somebody to tell us how. We want somebody to give us that exact strategy, because if it doesn't work, it's the strategy that didn't work.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, wow. That's so good. So then you're saying if it doesn't work, we can just say, well, that didn't work. It's not like me. It almost gives you an excuse.
Yep. You're looking externally for the next strategy, and the next strategy for somebody to tell you exactly how to do it, instead of trusting yourself, trusting your gut. And that is at the foundation of all of this.
Amen. Oh gosh. Okay. We're going to dive in a second on how to reframe the mind around sales. But I really want to emphasize on that. What you just said is powerful. Gosh. All right. I'm just gelling on that. And
you're looking for the strategy, for somebody to tell you how to do it, for somebody to give you the magical formula that is going to fix everything or get you anything you could have hoped for. And when that doesn't work, then the strategy is the problem.
And do you know why? In my experience, the deeper I go in mindset, which I resisted it for years and years and years.
Yep.
Our human mind tries to keep us safe. And it's almost like when presented with something new, like sales is so often, our knee-jerk reaction of our brain, is to worry about what it can't do, like what I don't know. And that's why we're constantly a lot of drama around the how, when really we're smart ladies. We know how we like to be sold to and how we don't like to be sold to. So like you say, go like pen and paper with your own brain and figure it out, and stop worrying about what some guru tells you to do, or even your manager, because I know I'm with you. I was in sales most of my life. And when I broke free and that doesn't sound good, I'm not going to use those words. Ta-da! It all works much better.
Right. Absolutely. Because you have to feel aligned. There's a transfer of energy that happens. And I'm sorry, that can sound woo, but it's so true. Like, you can feel when somebody has conviction, and you can feel when somebody doesn't. I always say you cannot fake conviction. So then how do you get more conviction? And that's a lot of this stuff, right?
That's so good. So ladies, trust yourself. God gave you intuition. Let me give you a quick story, then we're going to dive in.
Yeah.
My first year as a lawyer, I remember sitting in a room. I'm a first year peon. What do I know? But I'm sitting in this room around these amazing partners, and it was a corporate transactional type situation. And I remember just sitting there, and somebody would say something, and I had a thought, like something I wanted to add, but I held back. Don't you know, another man mentioned it, and everyone's like, oh, accolades. I didn't trust myself enough to open my mouth. And that happened in that one meeting, I think 2 or 3 times. But still, it took me years to have the guts to say, okay, I'm going to say this, So I think it's a similar kind of mindset. Totally. So let's talk about that. I love your approach to sales because it's all about prioritizing human connection. So how can our listeners reframe their mind around sales if even uttering the word makes them feel yuck?
Yeah. Let's think about it. Let's back it up to say, it's people over process. That's the whole human connection piece. You are talking to a person on the other end. Let's think about it around sales. So often people think of sales and they think of it as a transaction. I'm going to ask you for money and then you give me money, and that feels icky. And I don't want to have to do that. I don't want to have to ask you for money. Say that's an example. You're thinking of that as a transaction. Let's back it up. Let's figure out how can we lead this person and serve this person in a way that could help them achieve a transformation. Let's take away the transaction. What transformation can you help them achieve? through your service, through your products, through your offering, through this perception shift. You're selling ideas all the time. You don't have to be selling for money, right? It doesn't have to be a dollar, but you're selling ideas. You're planting seeds in a way, again, as long as you're doing this, like right now, I can feel my energy. Because I believe so strongly in what I'm saying. So if you believe at the heart of what you're doing, of what you can provide, of the transformation you can help somebody guide them through, then you're focusing on them, not on you. Instead of thinking like, I have to ask them to pay me $1,000. I have to ask them to pay me $20,000. What are you providing to them that is going to allow them to achieve some sort of transformation? Stop thinking of it by way of a transaction, right? And if you can believe so strongly that what you're doing aligns with your values, it aligns with what you're saying, you know that you're delivering what you're promising, all of these things, you have that belief in all of it. Now you're helping somebody, right? You're showing them how the next step that they can take in their journey.
Yes. And I think when you said that it sounds kind of woo-woo, I get that. Because I think there's an element to this that you have to experience to fully. Yeah. Like if you've never been in that powerful sales conversation, whether it's live or over the phone or Zoom or whatever, and you didn't experience this conviction and going all in service, it'll kind of sort of feel like words, and you won't be able to get it 1,000%. But trust us. And I have a quick thing when you said that. You said, too many women are thinking, I have to ask them for $1,000 or $10,000, whatever it is. Instead, you're saying, reframe it to say, I get to invite them in to whatever the container or whatever the product. I get them to experience this. And in exchange for I don't care if it's only $100,000, whatever that dollar amount is, in exchange for that, they're going to get so much more. And it's when you can have confidence that in fact what they're getting is worth way more than what they're paying. I think that helps too.
Yeah, it's so true. And I think as we put so much pressure on ourselves to have this perfect, that's the one thing I also like, this perfect script or this perfect conversation. And quite frankly, like every conversation you're going to have is different. Take the pressure off of yourself and listen. What are you hearing? How can you then in turn, you don't have to know all the answers. You don't have to be the end all be all. Be transparent, be honest about what your offer, your product or service provides and what it doesn't. And what's in your wheelhouse, what isn't. And that's such a freeing conversation that people have so much respect for. You will gain so much respect by your transparency, working in integrity. And at the end of the day, if it's not the right fit, don't force it. Don't try to force it into this box. If it's not the right fit, you know what? They're going to walk away thinking, wow, you don't have interactions like that every day. She was super transparent. She was taking this very much leadership approach. And you know what? It's not the right fit for me, but I know somebody it would be a great fit for. Instead of leaving this kind of high pressure, unnecessary, trying to fit everybody into this box sales approach, that's what leaves people with a bad taste in their mouth, right? And we all know it goes back to trusting your gut that like we know when that's happening to us, it feels icky. We don't like it. We roll our eyes. Don't do the same things, right? Like just realize you're talking to a human, have a conversation. What feels like the next right conversation to have? What else can you help them with?
Yeah, for sure. I love that. It's not sold to. They don't want to feel sold to. They want to feel loved on.
Yeah.
And so when we actively listen, then we're in a place to not worry about, oh gosh, here on my transcript here, where's the next question? Instead, you're listening and you're like, wow, that's an interesting thought. Let's explore that for a moment if we can. And that is when you have conversations, as you said, that really hit with the heart.
Yes.
They see that you care.
If you can, at the end of the day, approach your conversations, approach your interactions with keeping their best interest at heart. Keep their best interest in the forefront. And as long as that best interest aligns with you, your company, what it is that you're doing, that will help guide your conversation, but keep their best interest at heart. And then at the end of the day, whatever happens, you can feel good about your interactions with them. And I do think it can be hard at first. I think people think that they have to put on sometimes more of a show, or that, again, that what they're saying has to be perfect, or just be transparent, be human, because that is what people are craving.
They are craving it, especially after the pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah.
I mean, and I think it's important to say, like, to keep in mind in this whole idea of reframing the mindset, that the goal of a sales conversation is not a yes. Like for me, until I get on the phone with someone, they could look great online, but if they are not, passing all of my client filters, and I really won't know that until I talk to them. So the goal is really on the call, getting to know them, as you said, serving them, and then helping them come to a decision. Yes. And you come to a decision, right?
Yes, that's key. Understanding if it's a good fit for both of you, because that's ultimately, and if they're not a good fit for you, then you're investing your time and your energy and your focus in a client that isn't a right fit, when you're not, instead of protecting those clients who are, right? And so that's a key thing too. And a mindset kind of reframe is, the more that you are giving and forcing something that isn't a right fit, your energy is being taken from those who are.
Oh, that's so good. Keeping your best clients top of mind and serving them even above the person you're talking to. Wow, that is so good. That is
absolutely, because those clients, your best clients, are, I mean, they're gold. I mean, those are the ones they're going to come back. They're going to refer you. They're going to, that's such a partnership there. You don't want to sacrifice that.
Yeah. Wow. That's so good. That's so good. So yeah, for me, and I want to talk about this, then we're going to move on to messaging, a little bit, but trust. Ladies, that's the goal on the sales conversation. If you don't establish trust, they will never buy, period. And think about something that you may have purchased that you didn't really need, but you had this great relationship. It is the beginning of a relationship. And when you feel that and you establish the trust, and how is trust established? Because they exude confidence. That is you, the salesperson, you exude confidence, you display your competence, and you're sincere, caring. And then all of a sudden trust is established, and it's such an easier yes.
Yeah. And you do what you say you're going to do reliably. Bottom line, like, if you show up and present yourself a certain way, say that you're going to do this, say that this is what you stand for. And if they have any indication that that's not true, then that trust immediately, it's just subconscious. It just a wall starts to get put up.
For sure. For sure. All right. Messaging is a critical piece in the whole sales process. So how can our messaging help to connect with our best clients on a deeper level?
Yeah, I love this, because messaging is so critical. It's what starts to build that trust. It's what starts to create that overall understanding of who you are, what you're about, and how you can help somebody. So your messaging, again, is with them in mind, with your client in mind, and thinking about they're on this journey, right? And I think sometimes we so often assume that wherever we are, our area of expertise, that our clients have that same level. I mean, we know that they don't, but we're not talking in that way. Like, you have to meet them where they are now. So have an understanding of that. And then the words you use, the ideas and the seeds that you start to plant, because again, I always say you have to sell ideas first. You have to sell ideas first, depending on where they are on their journey, in order to make sure that they're ready for what it is that you're ultimately going to sell them in your program or your service or your offering.
Okay. I'd love to go to an example there, because I think for me, even I see what you're saying, but I want to really solidify this for the listeners. So when you're saying sell ideas first, I'm thinking, for example, for what you and I do, we need to, as we talk to the ladies, help them understand what possibilities are, right? Is we sell them on that belief. Is that kind of a good example of that?
Well, I'm going to back up, because this was somebody in one of my programs who, she is amazing. And she's she's in functional medicine, right? And a lot of her ideal clients are starting on their journey from the standpoint of, they might not know right now, what say if we look at gut health, for example, like
Yep.
what SIBO is or what irritable bowel is, all of these things and the right way to treat them in a way that can look at your body holistically. But they know that they are always tired and they are bloated. And at the end of the day, they just have no energy and they are tired of going to the doctor and being listened to for 30 seconds and being given the next medication. And it just seems like they're hopeless. And you have to meet them there and use their language around like, are you constantly just tired and sick of, like, you have to actually go to what they're thinking. Are you sick of going to the doctor and being listened to every, and then you start to guide them down the path. They don't know, like, are you struggling with whatever medical term? They don't know that yet, right? And how to care for that in a more holistic way, in her example. In my case with sales, so many times, and when I'm teaching or talking about these concepts, it is trying to make somebody aware on the front end that you don't have to be tied to a script, that it's not about the process, it's about the people over the process. And you start to plant these seeds and make somebody realize, I don't have to fit myself into the box. I don't have to just abide by the script. But then I can start to show them more and more around, it's about leadership, it's about influence, it's about transformation. But if I started there, they'd say, what are these concepts? What is that? You have to kind of back it up. It's for the person who right now is struggling, hiding behind scripts and processes and getting frustrated because they just want somebody to give them the strategy to sales. Mm-hmm. That's kind of a long rambling, like trying to just think of a couple examples, but that's what I mean.
No, that's really good. And I think what you've just said really is a prime example of going deeper, because it's like the woman is not going to bed feeling bad saying, "Oh, I wish my irritable bowel syndrome."
Right. Exactly. Like use the words that they would use. Yeah.
She's just like, help me. Yes. I don't want to be tired all the time.
That's right.
I'm tired of going to the doctor and
that's
they
right.
dismiss me and I'm sick of it. And
yeah, she doesn't know all things that could be at play there and all the solutions available to her to speak of it yet.
Mm-hmm. Wow, that's so good. So how do you work with your clients to make sales actually fun? Like mm-hmm. How long do you think it takes to kind of know your ideal client in this deep, intimate way so that you don't dread sales conversations, so that you actually look forward to them and say, wow, I get to talk to this person today and find out more?
And I think it really, like the famous answer, it depends, right?
But
yeah.
Of course.
But I think it does depend. And I think it's kind of twofold. I think you do have to know who you're talking to. I think you have to be very clear, even outside of that, like just be so confident in what it is you're doing. And even if it's like, you're confident in your product and your service and your offering, but even if you're so confident in your approach, you're so confident that you are so clear on your values and that you work in alignment with your values, you have to have something that gives you that conviction and that energy. And I think when you show up with just the first conversation in mind and listen to them more than you talk. Ask them questions, ask them what they're struggling with, ask them what do they just wish were possible when it came to your area, and just see what they say. And then from there, you can start to pick out areas where you can really help, or where you have this perfect angle for them. And so I think we so often do try to formulate this conversation in our mind, and we're thinking of the next thing we're going to say when somebody's talking. And then you're kind of doing that like weird deer in the headlights look, where you're looking over their shoulder and they're looking at you, snapping their fingers like, hello, can you hear me? Because people see that, people sense that. And so when we can actually truly, and it is difficult, like it takes a while of like trying to really practice this and do it, but is listening. And that's kind of freeing in a way, because there's no pressure on what to say next. Listen, and then really pick out of what they're saying, pick out something that you can help with, or pick out like the next best question to ask, and gather some of that information so that you can go back to them with a real thoughtful response or proposal or whatever it is, how you can work together.
Yeah, that is so good. A couple of notes that I had. I'm an avid note taker.
That's great. I love it.
As you are bringing up some thoughts, ideas that I don't know that I ever thought this deeply before. But first thing, when all we do is follow the script and we're like,
Mm-hmm.
ooh, what's the next question? And I, when I was a trial attorney doing depositions in the beginning, I was like that. Oh,
Sure.
what's the next question? Wrong, wrong, wrong. Because if you're not listening, then the question you're asking isn't getting anywhere. Like you're just doing superficial
Mm-hmm.
stuff and you're not going deep, number one.
Yeah.
So you're not getting the information you really need to understand what they need and how you might help, if at all. But also you're not connecting with them. They're like, oh yeah, just a salesperson.
Right. Exactly.
Right.
And that connection piece is huge. And when you don't ask the question, I mean, there can be so much missed opportunity. If you're following a script, like you might be sitting on this massive opportunity, but it's over here in this lane and you're staying in this lane, just focused on checking the boxes. Mm-hmm. When realizing that's when it comes down to is like, you're talking to a human, talk to them, be real. You're an expert in what you do. Trust that you're an expert. Yes. You don't have to follow a script.
That's right.
You can ask the questions. You can figure out what's the next best step. Is it another conversation? Is it an invite to one of your programs? Is it a referral to a colleague? I don't know, but be open to not knowing when you enter that first conversation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it makes it kind of a fun challenge.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, what I find when you're making these deeper level connections that we're talking about, what I've found is that you really hit their heart, and you might bring someone to tears because you've gone so deep in your questioning out of love that you've uncovered something that they might have buried and never even known.
Mm-hmm. So true. So true. And that connection level, that is, I always say, like, I love the 80-20 rule. And by that rule, like 20% of people do that, 80% don't. I think it's even fewer. That connection level, when you can do that and you can genuinely do that at an authentic level, that's the difference maker. And again, all the while you're truly looking out for their best interest. You're doing what you say reliably. I mean, those are your clients for life.
Yeah. Because when you ask the questions no one else is asking, all of a sudden you stand out. And even if you get a no on the call, all those questions, those conversations are gold.
Absolutely.
Because if you're talking with a person who is potentially a great fit as far as, fitting within your demographic and what you're really looking for, you're walking away, if you're listening, with market research that is invaluable.
Totally agree. Yeah, absolutely. And you learn from all of it. And then, like you said, that market research goes into either your next offering, or it helps you to build out your messaging thoughtfully with them in mind and meeting them where they're at. It starts that whole circle.
Love it. Okay. Well, before we get to an amazing opportunity, a free opportunity that you're opening up to our audience, is there anything we didn't touch on that you have on your heart right now you want to make sure you get out for our?
Well, I think I just want you to remember that when you talk about sales, it's that word that you can cringe or you can try to veer away from it, but you have so much to put out into the world. You're listening to this podcast for a reason. You know that you have something you need to do. And all this is about is unapologetically putting yourself out there in a way that's actually serving others. It's how you're getting yourself out into the world. It's how you're making the impact that you know you want to make. And by selling, by having these conversations, by serving, by helping to create these transformations, that's part of the process. And when you can start to do that, you can start to implement some of these shifts, then it becomes exciting and energizing instead of draining. And so that's just what I want for you, is to lean into what you're supposed to do. The selling piece is a part of that helps to get your impact in front of more people.
Beautifully said. Beautifully said. Well, I understand you have a free messaging masterclass that you want to make available. So tell us about that.
Absolutely. It's a deep dive. It's like a 30-minute masterclass that helps you to create messaging that connects at that deeper level, that stands out from 80% of what you see out there, and how you start to really connect with those the people that need to see what you have to offer and that you can make more impact for. So that you can find at imperfectlyambitious.com/magnetize, and you just sign up there and it gets delivered right to you.
Beautiful. Thank you for that. I'm going to make sure to put that in the show notes. Where can our ladies find you online? Like, where's the best place? Is it your website or somewhere else?
Yeah, I would say go. I'm pretty active on Instagram. You can go. I do kind of some mini in my stories, a lot, little mini trainings. You can find me at imperfectly_ambitious on Instagram, or hanging out on my podcast. Come listen to Judy's episode. She was on the podcast.
I love your podcast.
Thanks, Judy. Imperfectly Ambitious podcast. And then imperfectlyambitious.com.
Awesome. Well, Amanda, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom. Such a joy. Just really appreciate it.
Oh, Judy, I love what you're doing. It was an honor to be on your show. Thank you so much.
Awesome. You're so welcome. Ladies, thank you for listening. And if you have not yet left a rating and review, please pause and do that right now. It means the world to me. And if you go to the podcast page of my website, judyweber.co/podcast, scroll down a bit, there is an opportunity for you to do a voice note for me. Leave some feedback, leave a comment, leave a question. I want to start. I've received about 5 or 6. I want more so that I can start every episode answering your question or featuring you on the show. So go to judyweber.co/podcast. Thank you again for listening, and we will see you next time.